is August the 8th, 2023. I'm thinking, and I'm glad that I said that date out right. Let's see. 1997, I'm sorry, 1996, August the 12th. August the 12th, 1996 is the night we had our official first lunch Bible study. It wasn't the beginning of the church because we gathered for Bible study until January of the following year, 1997. But August the 12th, 1996 was the first. I'll never forget. I'll never forget. We began teaching from the book of Acts in that small hotel room. And how many years is that, y'all? Somebody help me out. How many years? 1996 to 2003? That's 27? 27, yeah. Wow. 27 years of teaching the Bible. For those of you who've been with us some length of time, if you take your lessons home each night, you every Tuesday night you should have a collection of binders of lessons because I look over those lessons. Actually, I refer to those lessons as my notes oftentimes. As I've told you guys, I have planned on publishing some more books, and those are the foundations, of my intellectual property, if you will. And so from time to time, I'll go back there. And if you want to do it tonight, go into the media room. They'll show it to you. That's a bookshelf from top to bottom of 3-inch binders of 27 years of notes. When you guys come to Bible study, I don't teach or preach what's on the 6 o'clock news. Our Bible study for 27 years has been planned and thought out to cover all of the Bible. We've taught through every book in the New Testament. We've taught through every old Proverbs, Psalms. We've taught through all of the major and minor prophets in the Old Testament. We've taught through the historic books in the Old Testament. If I'm not mistaken, I have about 2.5 books left, and every word, every verse, every chapter, every book of the Bible, this church has been, taught through. Get a Lord a hand clap for that. Not me. Get a Lord a hand clap for that. I'm humbled by it just to even think about it. And when I saw that date tonight, it kind of reflected upon me. August the 12th, 1996 was our first official night of studying for Gathering Group of Bible Study. But anyhow, here we are tonight, almost 27 years later, and we're dealing with the subject of the providence of God. As I said, over the years, I've had the privilege of preaching it or teaching it from many aspects, but I have to say the approach that I'm taking it now, even for me, it seems to be, it makes providence more understandable. At least for me, it seems as if it is. Because a lot of times people hear those big words like sovereignty, which says basically God has the power and ability to do whatever he chooses to do. And then you hear the word providence, which basically means with that sovereignty, he uses his wisdom to purposely fulfill whatever he wants to do. So sovereignty of God speaks of his power, and the providence of God speaks of his ability to wisely and purposefully do everything that he does. And so tonight, we're going to look at what I call one of the problems with people understanding the providence of God, and that's the what ifs. As you can see by your outline, the what ifs. The what ifs have stopped a whole lot of stuff from happening. The what ifs have created a lot of confusion for Christians and non-Christians. The what ifs. I think I may have posted something earlier today, but what causes people a lot of problems with the providence of God is their own belief in coincidences. While a lot of people don't embrace the providence of God, is because they have embraced their own coincidences. That happened by chance, luck, or fate, or that just sort of happened, by whatever. I saw something on news last night, and I said, boy, some people are going to have a field day with this. And as I was thinking about Providence, but it was a lady, I forget what state she was in, but she was out either moving brush or cutting grass with her tractor, and a snake fell out of the sky. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. A snake fell out of the sky, wrapped around her arm, and it was striking at her. She was on a riding mower. It didn't gouge her eyes because she had glasses on, but it kept striking at her, kept striking at her. Moments later, the hawk who dropped the snake from out of the sky came down to retrieve his snake back from the woman. So here she is driving her tractor lawnmower on her property, snake wrapped around her arm, striking her eyes. A hawk is with their talons, I think that's what you call it, talons of the hawk is grabbing to get the snake. He finally snatches the snake back, takes the snake off, and this woman, bless her heart, of course she went to the doctor, hospital. She's all right, but her arms are a mess from the talons of the snake and all of that. And I said, boy, somebody going to have a field day. We're talking about luck, chance, fate, coincidences, all of the terms to describe that, because they say, never could that happen in a million years. Because a lot of people believe in their coincidences more than they believe in the providence of God. You get a chance, Google it. I think it was on CBS News or whatever like that. It was interesting. My mouth was floored just to see it and hear it, that would happen. Yeah, so next time you cut in your yard, I would encourage you to keep your head to the sky. Oh my goodness. But many believe in coincidences, and as I've taught a couple of weeks how we started this thing, the reason why people have a providence with God, because it's hard. It's just hard. It's hard to understand. Why would God allow something like that to happen? Why would that happen? Even in regards to that lady, what did that teach anybody? So the understanding and accepting the providence of God is just hard. And then if you remember, after we talked about the providence of God being hard, then we talked about it being invisible. See, it would be different if the providence of God was visible, or it came with music. When it was going to happen, you'd hear a sound saying, "Okay, God finna do something." But it's hard. It's invisible. And if you remember last week with Abraham, the father of the faith, we talked about it being what? Mysterious. How God mysteriously worked all them things in Abraham's life for it to happen. Well, tonight I thought I'd grab another Old Testament prophet to further explain the providence of God and the what ifs, that we like to connect it with the coincidences, fate, luck, or chances. And I decided to use Moses, and we're going to look at Moses in a way and see if the what ifs of Moses and that situation. Because what if that woman don't hear that baby cry in the Nile River? It's so many. Basically, y'all ain't sitting here tonight. So we're going to talk about the what ifs. We're going to talk about coincidences, fate, chance, luck. And we're gonna put all those things under the heading of the providence of God, because I want you to understand that the providence of God, it supersedes all those things, which Christians, we don't believe in luck, chance, and all of that. Now, I know I have some very studious Bible studies, so I think it's Luke 10 and 31. Before we look at your outline, I want to lay some tracks down. Luke 10 and 31. There is one time in the Bible where the word coincidence is used. One time only. It's in the New Testament, and it's right here in Luke 10 and 31. It was when Jesus tells the parable of the Good Samaritan. He says, and by chance, there it is right there, a priest was going down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. By chance, a certain priest. That would be our translated word for coincidence. The word coincidence, when it's translated from in the Greek, it actually is called psycherion, which is a combination of two words. It's son and the kurios, which means son means together with. So the first part of the word coincidence would mean together with. And then kurios means the second part of it is supreme in authority. So when you take the Greek word that means together with and supreme in authority, a biblical definition for coincidence would be what occurs together by God's providential arrangement of circumstances. That's what by chance would be. It's not coincidence in the way that a snake falls from the sky, wraps on a lady's arm, hits her in the eye, hawk comes to get it, by chance. No, it's not by chance like that. When we know of the word coincidence in its Greek translation and from its foundation, if you will, it literally means what occurs together by God's providential arrangement of circumstances. So it was God's providential arrangement of circumstances, not luck or chance. I'm going to give you guys something to talk about tonight on your ride home, and maybe after you get home, whatever like that. As some of you are sitting next to your spouse and things of that nature, and I know you might think it was by chance that you met. I love to hear people talk about how did y'all meet? How did y'all meet? And who was chasing who was going after who, and all this other type of stuff, and I know we'd like to think that it was fate, because that sounds so romantic, though. Fate just brought Monique and Darius together. Fate. It was just fate. The blueberries were blooming, and the leaves were turning green, and you put all the fate. Well, I need you to understand something. The wife you have now, the husband you have now, the children you have now, the church that you are a part of now, place you work, the education you have, the abilities, the talents, all that stuff you got, ain't got nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do. None of that stuff occurred or happened or is happening outside of God, going back to my coincident definition, providential arrangement of circumstances. I think of some people in this church right now who are married. I'm looking at my media guy. I'm looking at this lady back here. If I don't answer God's call to preach in 1983, you know what I'm saying? If I don't surrender to God's call to finally preach my first sermon in 1985 or something like that, and then do the things I do, and I could go on and on and on and on, and then finally answer God's call, you know what I'm saying, to start a church, and from the starting of the church, you who were a young lady right then, he who wasn't even coming here then, you know what I'm saying? Your mama don't bring you to Bible study, don't bring you to a church. Well, his mama from the whole other side of town bring him here, and then y'all look Google eyed at each other for 6, 7 years. You go away to college, come back, and all this, and now y'all got like 17 kids. I mean, come on. Oh, sorry, not 17. Now you have y'all. That is not coincidences. That's not chance. That's not fate. That's, believe it or not. See, that'll make you love your spouse even more. That the providential hand of God was involved in placing him or her in your life. See, we like to think the only person that God brought together was Adam and Eve. And then we see how he blew that. So I need you to understand, ladies and gentlemen, even in Luke 10 and 31, when it talks about by chance, that's the word for coincidence, it's literally talking about God's providential arrangement of circumstances. All right? And just for the record, that was a parable. Okay? That was the parable of the Good Samaritan. That was the parable of the Good Samaritan. So don't nobody try to hold me to the word confidence, chance, luck, and all that in the Bible. That was a parable. That was a story being told. So what appears to humans or to us as random chance, in fact, is really being overseen by the sovereign God who Matthew 10:29. He knows the very hairs on your head. And then it says in Matthew 10:29, are not 2 sparrows sold for a sin, yet not one of them who will fall to the ground apart from your Father? That's not talking about a sparrow dying, because a lot of people think, oh, he's talking about sparrows dying. Really, that word will fall to the ground, when you put it in its proper context, using this Greek term, it literally means he's hopping from one tree, one space to another. So it's like seeing a sparrow go from this limb to that limb to the ground, to another limb, stuff like that. It's a sparrow hopping around. So basically, it ain't saying he knows every time a bird dies. It's saying God knows every time a bird skips from one place to another. That's what it's saying here. So you got to understand that this sovereign God who knows the hairs on our head, this sovereign God who notices when a sparrow, skips to the ground. Look at Isaiah 46:9-11. Listen what it says. Isaiah 46:9-11. It says, remember the former things long past, for I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is no one like me. Declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times, things which have not been done, saying my purpose will be established, and I will accomplish all my good pleasure. Calling a bird of prey from the east, the man of my purpose from a far country, truly I have spoken, truly I will bring it to pass. I have planned it, surely I will do it. That's what God is saying, y'all. See, we like to, say, it was random by chance, but it's really the sovereign God who knows the number of hairs on your head. Even when we shave the hairs on our head, he knows the potential that we could have 3 strands left. He knows. He knows the numbers of hairs on our head. He knows when a sparrow jumps to the ground from limb to limb. This verse says he planned it, he does it. When we consider life events, we tend to classify them as important or unimportant. Even like, if I'm going to go to something, I'm not going to go to something. Well, we won't go to stuff that's not important, and we'll go to stuff that's important. That's how we classify life events, if you will. There is no unimportant events or things that pertain to God. God deals with everything in the world down to its every minuscule event, every minute, every second of our everyday lives, ladies and gentlemen, are being ran by the providence, sovereignty of God. His attention is never divided. Just as he knows every time every sparrow moves, he knows every thought and intent of every created human being's heart. And that's why God can't be cool for me. When, that people try to identify God, God is not cool. God is not dope. God ain't righteous. Well, he's righteous. I'm sorry. That would have been in the 70s. God ain't hip. God ain't groovy or whatever terms. You know what I'm saying? God is holy. He is the almighty God. We don't say that term often enough. He is the almighty, all-knowing. We think we say all-knowing. There's still stuff we can hide from him. No, he's the all-knowing. He's the all-seeing. He's the all-powerful God. And when we embrace him as that, we won't get in our car, go across state line thinking we're hiding from him. See, y'all, citing coincidences is how humans explain unexpected events and surprise meetings. You ever been somewhere and ran into somebody like, man, how are you here? That has happened to Jenny. I mean, literally, I can't tell you tons of times it happened to us. It's happened to us even out of the country. We would be in one country, and then it was like 12 hours later, we was in another country, out of the country, and ran into somebody who saw us 12 hours early in another country. That's not coincidence. We ended up in his store. As we was in Africa, we ended up in his store that night. He owned the store, and he said, man, you were at the falls this morning in the other country, Uganda. I said, yeah. And he said, yeah, we saw you. Me and my friends, we talked about you. We thought you were, they thought I was Ethiopian. He said, until I opened my mouth. I guess you heard the Louisiana draw. I had my full beard going at that time. All that. He said, we thought you were Ethiopian. We was talking to you. I said, well, what are you doing here? He said, this is my establishment. I said, what? We're in 2 countries over. 12 hours later, we run into you. And, of course, we all got free ice cream that night. That's all I remember. But no way, that was a coincidence. I remember seeing the guys. I really do. I remember them looking at them. I remember them looking at me, and I was like, okay, here we finna have a problem this morning. We were at the falls in Uganda. And then that night to end up 2 countries over in his store. Oh, no coincidence. But that's what we tend to do. We cite things as coincidence, chance meetings, and all that stuff. But I need you to understand what occurs in regards to chance is God's providential arrangement of the chances, if you want to say it, the circumstances. Only time in the Old Testament that you think, and some people think this has something to do with luck or chance or whatever like that, there was the Urim and the Thummim. The Urim and the Thummim, these were things that were on the ephod, the high priest's vest, if you will. They would take those things out and kind of take them and throw them on the ground to see, which way to go. Well, actually, that wasn't luck or chance. That wasn't rolling the dice as we would see today. It was God directing the Urim. God would use the Urim and the Thummim. I know I'm saying those words right. Urim and the Thummim. He would use those 2 articles to direct the people in the Old Testament. Matter of fact, he even told them before the church was established in the New Testament to use the Urim and the Thummim, if you will, so they could pick who would be the 12th apostle. It wasn't that they were doing chance. It was God, when you read it, directing the Urim and the Thummim so they would know which way to go, who to pick, and things of that nature. So God has never left history, his story, the things that he have never left any of those things, ladies and gentlemen, to chance. God has shown throughout Scripture he can use the smallest object. Look at Proverbs 19:21. He can use the smallest object or event for his purposes. God does not seem to allow for a coincidence. The administration of the universe is not based on serendipity. Look at what 19:20. This is Proverbs says. Many plans are in a man's heart, but the counsel of the Lord will stand. Let me help some of y'all out in case your translation ain't right. You remember when your mama said, I don't care what they say. You're going to do what I say. That's what that means right there. That's what that means right there. Now, I don't care what they say. I don't care what they doing. You're going to do what I say. That's what that verse means. My plan, many plans. So we make many plans, but ladies and gentlemen, the outcome is going to be what God wants. You say even the bad? Yes. Because he's even able to work, being in the wilderness for 40 years to work out for, the betterment of the people. He's even to work, and we're going to look at it in a minute, 400 years of slavery for his glory. See, the reason why we have problems with stuff like this, because we keep trying to get glory. Even with the slavery. We keep trying to get some type of recognition of glory. Guys, it ain't about us. It ain't never been about us. What does 1 Corinthians 10:31 say? Whatever you do it all to the what? To the glory of God. And we're going to show you tonight that even slavery fulfilled God's purpose. I know we don't like hearing that. Proverbs 16:33, this is the last one, then we'll do our opening statement. Proverbs 16:33 says, the lot is cast unto the lap, but its every decision is what? From the Lord. Y'all, what may seem insignificant to us may be in fact a result of God's omniscient power working on our behalf to accomplish his will in our lives. That's what providence is. And if we could ever, I'm not making light of mental health because it is a real thing and stuff like that. But there are a lot of things that challenge us mentally and physically and just, emotionally. Because, and I'm talking about especially believers, we won't embrace the providence of God. We won't embrace the sovereignty of God. We won't embrace that even God taking our loved one was God's choice. So, let's talk about the what ifs, because our problem with God's providence is the belief in coincidences. That's the problem. If people didn't have a strong belief in coincidences, they may, talking about believers, have a stronger appreciation for providence. But we still like to talk about coincidences as if it was something we did apart from God that, this situation happened. Opening thought says, Moses, think about it. A baby cried, and even though the Bible doesn't say that he literally cried and she heard the cry, but I guess I got that out of the movie, The Ten Commandments. I'm going to be honest with y'all, all right? It don't say it in the Bible that, she was down there in the Nile River and she heard a cry. And then she went and found the reef with the basket with the baby. It don't say that in the Bible, y'all. But I guess I saw the Ten Commandments too many times, because in the Ten Commandments, they make the baby cry before she sees the reef. And then she looks through the reeds and she, well, just remember that. Moses, think about it. A baby cried, and that changed the entire course of human history. All Western civilization, all of Near Eastern history, and indeed the entire course of human events thereafter was affected by the baby's cry. No what ifs. No what ifs. Let's begin reading Exodus 1, and we'll read 1 through 8. We're just going to have to read these verses. Now, these are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, and they came, each one with his own household. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All the persons who came from the loins of Jacob were 70 in number, but Joseph was already in Egypt. Let me just give you a quick synopsis of that. Y'all know the story of that, right? Joseph had got sold by his brothers and all that stuff, had been in prison and all that, got delivered. Pharaoh gave him a job. What happened Jacob and his 70 people were famous in the land. They had to get food because they had grain silos and all that in Egypt. The 70 people, Jacob, go there, find out, Jacob sent his two sons, find out that their son Joseph is in charge. They know it was him. He tells them, bring my dad, my brother Benjamin, all of them. The 70 come over there. From the 70 to come over there, it ends up ultimately being 2 million people. That's where the 12 tribes of Israel come from, the sons of Jacob. That's what it means. And Joseph was already in Egypt, okay? That's the short version of it. Verse 6. Joseph died, and all his brothers and all that generation. Didn't happen one night. It's talking over a period of time, okay? But the sons of Israel were fruitful and increased and greatly multiplied and became exceedingly mighty, so that the land was filled with them. So you got to remember, when Pharaoh brings over the first Jacob and his family, it's 70 of them. But from the 70, they done turned into millions after a period of time. Now, a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph and the story of Joseph, and his faithfulness. He said to the people, behold, the people of the sons of Israel are more and mighty than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, or else they will multiply. And in the event of a war, they will also join themselves to those who hate us and fight against us and depart from the land. In other words, if enemies come against Egypt, and there's 2 million of them now, and they already hate them because they're their taskmasters, and they join fighting with them, they say, man, we're going to be overwhelmed and overran. So they appointed taskmasters over them to afflict them with hard labor. And they built for Pharaoh those storage cities, which you saw in the movie 10 Commandments, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and the more they spread out. So they were in dread of the sons of Israel. I'm going to go to verse 14 and stop. The Egyptians compelled the sons of Israel to labor rigorously. And they made their lives bitter with hard labor in mortar and bricks, and at all kinds of labor in the field, all their labors which they rigorously imposed upon them. Now, if you look at your notes, it says, when we think of how all of this started, which we just read, the descendants of Jacob were prisoners in Egypt. They were enslaved and functioned as a slave labor force. I underline that for y'all because, slavery didn't just happen to African Americans. But the hard-hearted Pharaoh begins to fear what every tyrant fears, an uprising of masses of people revolt. So to control the size, watch this now, and the strength of the Jewish population, I put that word in there for a minute, the slaves, Pharaoh issued a decree of limited genocide. He decreed the murder of every Jewish male baby. Let's read verse 15 through 16. The king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives. Those are the women who would give birth, help women have babies. Not give birth, help women give birth to babies. One of them who was named Shiphrah, and the other whose name was Puah. And he said, when you are helping the Hebrew women to give birth and see them upon the birth stool, if it is a son, then you shall put him to death. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live. So notice, Pharaoh issued a decree of limited genocide. He decreed the murder of every newborn male Jewish baby. The Pharaoh was not content to command his soldiers to kill the Jewish babies. So the birth control, if you will, we can talk about that in question and answers. So the birth control task was given to the Jewish midwives, who were commanded to carry out the slaughter of their own people. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the male children alive. Let's read to verse 22. It says, but the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt had commanded them, but let the boys live. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and he said to them, why have you done this thing and let the boys live? The midwife said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwife can get to them. That was kind of like that would be a lie, you know what I'm saying? That would be, stretching the truth a little bit. Say, we got word, we was running over that. By the time we got there, the baby was born. He said, it ain't like you Egyptian women. Y'all got, I'm having pains. Oh, yeah, He said, them women, they strong. They give birth, boom, they get up, go to work the next morning. So God, because of their disobedience to the government, which spoke against what God told them to do, I'll say that again. I'm setting some stuff up here, and when we get to question and answer like that, the government said do something, but the something they said do was against God. The midwives feared God and not the king, not the government. So God was good to the midwives. And the people multiplied and became very mighty. Verse 21. Because the midwives feared God and not the government. He established households for them, God. Verse 22. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, every son who is born you are to cast them in the Nile, and every daughter you are to keep alive. So the midwives feared God, and they did as the Egypt king, and he saved the male child alive. The decree stipulated that the slain males were to be cast into the Nile River. They were to be sunk in the Nile so as to never exercise any future threat to Pharaoh. But one of the Hebrew women who bore a son took exceptional care to protect her son from Pharaoh's decree. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. Now, a man from the house of Levi, which is one of the 12 tribes, went and married a daughter of Levi. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was beautiful, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could not hide him any longer, she got him a wicker basket and covered it over with tar and pitch. Then she put the child into it and set it amongst the reeds by the bank of the Nile River. His sister stood at the distance, the sister of the baby boy, at the distance to find out what would happen to him. So this Hebrew woman bore a son. She took care of it. She took exception to protect it from Pharaoh's decree. Now think about it. The Hebrew mother consigned her son's fate to the very river that was to be the place of the disposal of all the dead infants. Think about that. I mean, if you're going to try to hide your son, if you're going to try to see that he has a better life and get away, why would you deposit him in the very river that they're depositing all the bodies of the male babies? If ever a mother delivered her baby into the hands of the providence of God, it was her. Okay? This lady, 3-month-old baby, she fixes it, she puts it in the thing, she lets it float. We'll talk about it in a minute because you don't even know the flow of water. Let me just read on. When you think about it, this mother demonstrated just as much reason to hope that her child would survive as Abraham did when he laid Isaac on the altar. Because remember, last week when we talked about Providence being mysterious, remember Abraham, he tells the guys, the other lads, he said, hey, me and Isaac, me and the lad finna go up here, we're going to worship and we'll be back. Abraham believed that no matter what, he's going to make this sacrifice, but he's going to still have his son some kind of way. God going to raise him from the dead or something. Well, the same confidence that Abraham projects with that, this woman herself projects similar confidence in the providence of God. Puts her baby in the very river where all the male boys are being deposited. Not knowing, I said, the swirls or the precise movements or the flowing of water, this mother only hope was in the invisible providential hand of God. Just think about it. We was talking about that, I think, with the leaders or somebody. You know, the Dead Sea is one of the only places that has no outlet, no stream, no flow of water. That's where everything in the Dead Sea in Jerusalem dies, because there's no flow. But every river, bank, bayou, stream, creek, whatever, there's a flow of running water. And you never know what you can't figure out the flow of the water. This woman takes her son, a 3-month-old son, puts him in this thing, not knowing even the flow of the water. She don't know that it's going to flow by the river now where Pharaoh's daughter would see it, take the baby out, and you know how to stir. She don't know that. So what is she doing with this? She ain't killing her baby. You understand what I'm saying? She ain't killing her baby. She literally puts her, she don't believe in coincidences or circumstances. This is her putting her faith and her trust in the providence of God, and it doesn't make sense. And many of us would have been coaching this lady, or if she came to us for advice, we never would have told her to do what she did. We never would have told her to do what she did. So, turn over your paper. She exercised her own kind of providence for as long as she could. It'll make sense to you, men. In other words, she was protecting, providing for her son as long as she could for those 3 months. And then the girl, the sister, you know, she became the eyes of providence, if you will. Let me just read on. But in reality, the only true protective eyes upon her newborn in that vessel were the eyes of God. Yeah, the sister may have been thinking that she was standing along the bank watching it, and her eyes were the protective eye, but there was nothing she could do. I mean, even if someone would have grabbed the baby and killed it and drowned her, there was nothing she could have do. So even though she thought she was in the protective eyes, come on, mamas and daddies, I need you to hear me. I need you to hear me, mamas and daddies. Even though she thought that she was the protective eye of her little brother, the only true protective eye for our children is God. Then a strange thing happened. Something that would be regarded in our day as a coincidence, a chance encounter, or a fortuitous event. Someone else's eyes beheld the floating craft. Now, what happened to attract those eyes to the basket floating in the river is for some a matter of conjecture, luck, fate, or coincidence. Because nobody really knows why all of a sudden, you know, in the movie Ten Commandments, she basically says, I'm going to go down here and walk down here, you know, and I don't know why I'm walking over this way, but I'm going to go walk over this way. I'm going to go walk over this way. And while she's walking over there, something causes her eyes. Because the float ain't making no noise. The vessel, the craft, the little baby ark, it's not making no noise. It's just sailing through, floating through the water. Something at that moment causes to catch her eyes. Something catches her eye. Something causes her to look that way. As I said, many would call it luck or whatever. So let's go with verses 5 through 6. It says, the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the Nile with her maidens walking along the Nile. And she saw the basket among the reeds and sent her maid, and she brought it to her. Verse 6. When she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the boy was crying. So, again, that doesn't say he was crying when she saw it. It said when he opened it, he was crying. And she had pity on him and said, this is one of what? The Hebrews' children. So again, back to our notes. What happened here to attract those eyes? No one knows. It's a matter of conjecture, whatever. I call it providence. Other people call it luck. Of all the people on the face of the earth to spy out the floating vessel, the ark, at this place, at this time, it happened to be the Pharaoh's daughter. If this was a coincidence, and it wasn't, unless it was the biblical definition of coincidence, the providence of God, if you will, ladies and gentlemen, arranging the circumstances. If this was a coincidence, it was one of the most remarkable coincidences of all time. Now, it is important to note that Pharaoh's daughter did recognize that the baby boy was a Hebrew. So she was risking her father's wrath as a princess, defying the king by aiding this helpless Hebrew boy. Think about it. Had she obeyed her father's decree, she would have thrown the baby back into the river, and it would have been the end of it. Maybe. Because she put it back in there, who knows, quarter mile down the Nile River, crocodile come out. Hippopotamus come out. It's a 3-month-old baby. It can only float and live in the Nile River for so long. So without any intervention, it's the baby's death, eventually, right? Had she obeyed her father's decree, she would have thrown the baby back into the river. That would have been the end of it. There would be no more rest of the story. Maybe, huh? I don't know. Look at verses 7 through 10. Then the sister said to the Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you, for the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go ahead." So the girl went and called the child's mother. Okay? Y'all getting the story? The coincidence, the chance, the fate, the luck. Out of all the women, the Hebrew girls, that she wanted to come and nurse the baby, the one that nurses the baby is the baby's biological mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away," which was hers. She gave it back. Y'all not hearing me. Boy, I can preach right here. You give it to God, and he gives it back. You give it to God. We think we have to hold on to him. I'm talking about children too. I ain't talking about money and all that. We think we're husbands and wives. Yeah, give them to God, ladies and gentlemen. Pharaoh's daughter said, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So now she's getting paid to take care of her own baby from Pharaoh's daughter. Coincidence, luck, chance, fate, I know. So the woman took the child. Could you see her saying, "Let me get back with you. I already got some other kids. Let me get back with you. I don't know if I want to nurse this one right here." Listen, ladies and gentlemen. There would be the rest of the story. Note, because God's history, the history that he alone has purposed, because you got to understand, he purposed it beforehand. He purposed it. You understand what I'm saying? He purposed it before Abraham, who, laughed at being 90-something years old, wife being 90-something, having a baby. He laughed. He purposed it before then. He told Abraham, "I'm making a covenant with you." So from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob, 12 sons, to Joseph being, second in command in Pharaoh, to all those years going by. Y'all ain't none of this stuff coincidence or luck. This is the providential hand of God dealing with every circumstance down to the minutest detail. This is what makes me shout about God. Y'all, I don't know, when we be talking about God and all that, y'all, I don't just be thinking about, the old man in the sky. I'm thinking about his providence. I'm thinking about his sovereignty. I'm thinking about his power. I'm thinking about the things he's done in history. I'm thinking about the things he's done in my life, and I can't be still. I can't just be blasé about this. So, because God's history, which is history is his story. I tell you that all the time when you break that up. that he alone has purpose will not be thwarted by anything or anyone. No matter, so what the king said a decree that he was going to do that. So what? God said, I'm not going to be thwarted by that. I'm going to move upon the heart. I'm going to move upon this man who he's going to marry this woman. I'm going to provide the child. I'm going to make it that she gets pregnant. She's going to get pregnant. She's going to safely be able to hide him for 3 months and da-da-da, and the story goes on and on. And then history, God's history unfolds. This ain't luck or chance. This ain't coincidence. So, guys, we can't ever play the what-if game with God. Give me 5 minutes, I'll let this thing go. We can't ever play the what-if game with God. For instance, and let me just show you why I use the what-ifs. What if Moses' mother had not successfully hidden him from Pharaoh's soldier for 3 months? What if Moses' mother had not made the ark from reeds? What if the tiny craft had leaked and sunk to the bottom of the river? What if Pharaoh's daughter had not been at the riverside at the exact moment the ark floated by? What if she didn't have compassion? What if the baby hadn't cried? Listen, the game of what if involves contingencies and things that could conceivably occur or not occur. But our sovereign providential God does not rule the universe and everything in it by what ifs. He does not rule the universe by coincidences, chance, luck, or fate. Lord have mercy. God does not leave things to chance. We play the what ifs. This happens with relationships and stuff like that. Well, what if he don't do that? What if she don't do that? And so we make decisions based on the what ifs. You can't make decisions based on the what ifs. Because the what if that you're putting in place goes against the purpose of God. I like the fact that the child is placed in the Nile River because there's no control of it. It's left to God to navigate the water, the rate, the speed, the distance, the flow. So at the exact moment, boom, everything collides together. God did that. God took care of the temperature that day, the weather, everything. Now, this is what makes me shout about God. I can't live on luck and coincidence. And even when bad things happen in my life, sometimes Christians try to make me, adjust my decision. But because you got to understand, even if I make the wrong decision, the providence of God is not going to be thwarted. Even if I make the wrong decision, what God planned is going to happen. People keep trying to make people, make sure you make this safe decision, make this God decision, make all these right decisions, make the right move, da. And when you make this move, then all this stuff going to happen. Yeah, even for babies, you're right. God, and not us. So that gives me freedom in preaching and teaching. I say what the Bible says, and the results of it, I leave it up to God. Because the providence of God said, ain't nobody going to hell because of me, and ain't nobody going to heaven because of me. We keep thinking we play this major role in history, when all we are is, thank you, Lord, all we are is a helpless baby on the Nile River, floating to the directions and the decisions and the providence of God. Listen, our sovereign God does not rule the universe and everything in about what if. God does not leave things to chance. We play the what if. We speculate on the course of history had the baby not cried. We would surmise that if the baby had not cried, there would have been no Moses. Had there been no Moses, there would have been no incident at the burning bush. Come on, y'all. No burning bush, no Exodus. No Exodus, no giving of the law at Mount Sinai. No law, no prophet, no Jesus, no cross, no redemption, no Christianity, no Western civilization as we know it. All of this, if a baby in a homemade ark had failed to cry at the precise, right, exact moment. Y'all, I'm not going to put history on the what ifs. The providential hand of God in everything. I conclude with this. I know that it's a popular adage that declares the devil is in the details. You hear that all the time. Well, I heard it all the time coming up. The devil is in the details. But it's actually more accurate to avow that God is in the details. The doctrine of providential rule extends to all things great and small, from the huge to the minute, to the infinite to the infinitesimal. I mean, it's nothing smaller than the infinitesimal. I mean, to the smallest thing. God is in control of it. Things don't happen by chance, ladies and gentlemen. They don't happen by coincidence. Even though that term is used in Luke 10:31, it literally means, and I close with this, all things happens under the providential care of God, arranging all circumstances so that his purpose will be fulfilled. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.